Good afternoon, YouTube. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I just wanted to do a special video devoted to this Paph here. This is my Paph Insigne. I'm very happy right now because it's actually out in bloom. I finally spiked this guy, and this plant has 3 spikes on it, so I'm very happy about that. And I've had it so long, I've divided it. I have 3 more plants like this, and 2 out of the other 3 that aren't on camera right now also have spikes, so I'm really happy. There's another bud back there even, and this one in front of us has just opened, and this one opened last week. So I just wanted to go through and tell you my love-hate relationship with this plant. This plant is, I've had this plant for probably 7 years, and I think I bought it at an orchid show, and there was one sitting on the table and it was in bloom, and then there was another one sitting on the table, and it was much smaller but had many more fans. It was much smaller, not blooming size, and I've come a long way in 7 years, and I know at that point that it wasn't blooming size, but I thought in a year or two it'll be blooming size and I'll have so many more fans, and so I chose that one instead of the one that I saw blooming. And anyways, the next year it did not bloom, and the next year it did not bloom, and I went, what the heck? The fans are getting quite big. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So then I started experimenting with this one, and I have the mentality that if you're not blooming for me, I'm doing something wrong, and I'm going to do something different to try to get you to bloom. And if you're not producing flowers for me, you're not worth that much to me anyways, so I'm going to do it to the extreme. So I went and searched for advice from some local orchid growers, and you know, the best advice I got was treat them like a cymbidium, and I still stand by that. Treat it like a cymbidium. So for the next couple of years, I would put this guy in brighter and brighter sun in the summertime until the leaves went almost a pale yellow. They were so bright. And then I would bring it back in for the wintertime and nothing would happen again. And so it was really frustrating, but I kept up doing that. And then I would start leaving it out in the fall later and later with the cymbidiums because I'm growing it like a cymbidium, but nothing would happen. So finally this year I stuck them up top, and I'm going to slowly pan the camera past the lights that are on, past the lights that are off, up to that shelf there where the Lycastes are now going dormant. In the summertime, that is a bloody hot shelf. There, it's 2 feet under the roof, and it gets sun all day long. That's where they sat, and they basically cooked up there, and I fertilized them heavily when I thought about it, and I forgot to water them half the time, and they would be bone dry. I put little saucers under them, even though they don't need saucers, just to catch a little bit more water, so they had a bit for the day or so, because as I say, it's really hot and dry up in that corner, and it doesn't get misted unless I mist it. So that's where they sat, and they all sat there, got fertilized. Then I thought it came time for fall, and this year I put them outside, but instead of putting them out in the open like I normally do, I took them and put them in my temperate greenhouse out front. They were one of the plants that went out there along with the cymbidiums, because I'm still treating them like a cymbidium, to get their cold chill. And that greenhouse, it got down to 0 or close to 0 so many times. These plants were colder than they had ever been. I would wake up in the morning and go, oh my goodness, it's 2 degrees in the greenhouse. And they're fine. So no damage to them. And then I bring them back in because winter's coming, and I thought, well, we're going to get below freezing temperatures soon, and I don't want them to freeze. Even though you're not producing for me, I don't want you to freeze to death out there. So I brought them in, and I brought them in middle of November. And by the middle of December, I found flower spikes on them. So I finally did something right. And all it took was about 7 years, cooking them in the summertime and freezing them in the wintertime. And that is how I got my Paph Insignes to bloom, as well as lots of fertilizer, of course. So these guys were all repotted last spring. They were repotted in March, so they had fresh media, tons of fertilizer, tons of light, tons of heat in the summertime, and then stone cold in the winter. The reason I took them to the temperate greenhouse was it gets about 10 degrees colder in there than it would even in the cold side of the greenhouse here. And it's really, really bright in there. There's no bubble wrap, there's no shade cloth, there's no nothing. And it's actually a sunnier spot than this greenhouse sits now. So that temperate greenhouse, even in the winter, it's really bright. So they got bright and cold and cool. And yeah, so I'm super happy about it and just wanted to share that with you. But anyways, that is my love-hate relationship with this guy. I have thrown him, or almost thrown him out so many times. I have put them in positions where it's like, well, you know what, if he dies, he dies. He was sitting outside for a few summers in a row, hanging in direct summer sun all day long, just cooking in the sunshine. I'd water him when I got to him, and I had the mentality, well, if you're not going to flower for me, you're not any good anyway, so I'm going to try my best to give you as much light as possible. And this was the first year I didn't actually throw them outside. I just kind of forgot about them up on the top shelf of the greenhouse. So yeah. Anyways, if you want to see more updates like this, more flowers like this, make sure you subscribe to my channel. And as always, thanks for watching.